Hey fellow gliders, it's me Bob and I'm here back talking to you more about filtering. So I've already done a couple videos on filtering. The first one was not really filtering, even though it's kind of smoke and mirrors. Basically it was just a choice component. You selected an item on the choice component and it presented you with one of three or X amount of inline lists depending upon which one you chose. So that was more of like a visibility trick, not a filtering. However, you may remember this video where I showed you this option where you can have a couple of choice components, one per type of option that you want to filter by. And then using some trickery on the back end, you can choose the options here and see just those filters that you're selecting using this inline list and choice component combo. And this is really nice and it works really well. The only issue with this is that it requires you to set up like 5 or 6 columns and filters per choice component, right? And so this is certainly an option if you only have 1 or 2 things you're filtering by, but let's say you're filtering by a whole list of items and you want them to select, like 5 or 6 different options, and you want them to filter by those options, right? Now Glide does have a way for you to have that built in. So it's just this in-app filter. This works when you're not on a details screen, but on a list or tiles or cards screen. And here you can have this in-app filter where you're presented with your list of options here. These are all coming from the same column, just different rows. And here I can filter by, let's say English. And then all the people with English get filtered. But let's say I want to do English and music, right? So here I can come back and do English and music, right? I hit done. But now you see I actually have more options than I did before because this filter, this in-app filter, is an OR filter. It's searching by all people that match music or English, like so. Here you see music, music and English, math and English. But let's say I'm a student and I want to find the tutors who teach math and music, or English and music, because I want 1 tutor, not 3 tutors, right, who can teach both those subjects. Well, the in-app filter is not the right solution for me, even though the interface is really nice, because again, this presents it as an OR. So what we really need is this kind of interface, but to have an AND. And here's how I came up with it. So here we see in this other tab, very similar, right? I have this filter button where I can select, right? And it looks like the same kind of display, the same interface. And if I choose nothing, then all of them are being filtered. And here are all of the items. And if I want to filter by math and music, then I just get the one option for the one person who teaches math and music, rather than the OR of all 4 people who have math or music somewhere in their categories, right? All right, so this is the end goal. Here's how I created it. Okay, the first thing I had to do was create a button, and this button is a link to screen that links out to the list of subjects. I only have 2 sheets that I use. I have this subject sheet, and I have this tutor sheet. And so the subjects is the list of subjects, and then the tutors are the people who teach that subject. Okay, the way that sheet is set up is I have a person, and then I have subjects 1 through 6, let's say, and this person teaches, those subjects, and then those get compressed together into an array column because of the format that I have set up here, subjects 1 through 6. And you see that in here, that subjects 1 through 6 now shows up as an array column. Okay, then what I did is I related this subjects array column to the subjects themselves here. And then I did a joined list to get a comma separated value of the subjects that they taught. So that way I can display that here underneath their name. All right, I can quickly create something like this. Again, I can create a person number 5 if I wanted to, by just a simple form. Maybe this person teaches, science and English. Add, that person will show up here. I don't have a way for them to put in their name yet because it's just all demo and dummy data, but you see that once I put in their name, okay, then that person shows up with science and English. All right, fine. So here's that same list here. And the trick is that I want to make sure that I can set up that and condition of the subjects. So on the back end, what I did is I have a user-specific column called filtered on. Now you could do Boolean, true or false. I chose to do dates instead because I was going to eventually try to do a clear all by doing some date magic, but it's completely up to you. And so this filtered on user-specific date column is what's going to drive most of the magic here. All right, so here's my list of subjects. Again, this is a button. That's just a link to screen to the subjects. Here's my inline list of subjects. It's a details screen again with just an inline list. Nothing special about this subjects list. It's just displaying the subject value and this filtered icon, which I'll talk more about later. Except that the action is not view details, but I have a custom action here that's going to point to this filtered on user-specific date column. All right, so here's that custom action. It's 3 parts, 1 condition, and 2 set columns. The condition is just checking to see if that user-specific date column is empty or not. If it's empty, then I'm going to set a column to make it not empty by writing the current date and time to that filtered on user-specific date column. So they click on it once, it's going to be empty, but then it's going to set the current date and time, and then it's going to be no longer empty, right? So when they go to click on it a second time, this if filtered on is empty condition is no longer met because it's filled in with the date, and instead it's going to get set to this set column where I'm clearing the value. So really all I'm doing is I'm setting a date or I'm clearing it based upon whether or not that cell is already filled in or not. Just so you see how that works. If I go to the data tab here, I'm in my math section up here. So filtered on right now is empty, but if I click on it once, it gets filled in with the date. Click on it again, it clears the date. Pretty simple. Okay. Now you see some other things happening here. Right? When I click on it, this filter applied gets another value. We see that it writes whatever was in the subject value here to this filtered subject sheet or column. It has this filter count of 1, and then it places this icon of a checkbox. Okay. To talk more about that, here is that filtered on column again. And from here on out, what I might be doing is just typing in the date manually rather than having to go back to the screen and clicking on the date. Okay. Just so you see what's going to happen here. All right, next I have this joined text column, which is looking at this subject's filtered on. Okay. And all I'm doing is I'm separating, and I have no separator on here. So I think when you typically create a join list column, it puts this comma space in there, but I don't want that because I want there to be nothing in there if there are no values in that filtered on column. So I just deleted the space and I deleted the column to give me this empty column if there's nothing in here. Okay, if I do put something in there, meaning I click on one of those subjects and it writes the date, okay, you see that it writes that value in here because it's part of the join text. It's going to look at all values in this column and smash them together. So here it has just the one value right now, but if I put in a second one, right, we see it smashes them together. And we don't really care what's in this column. We just care that something is in there when we are filtering by one of our subjects. So again, we click on math, it puts a date there, and now this gets filled in. We type in music, right? It puts the date in, and it just keeps adding on. If we no longer want to filter by math, we click on it again, it clears the date. Something is still in here because we're filtering by music, but if we click on music again to clear music, so we filter by everything, then you see that this is completely empty. All right, then we have this if then else of filtered subjects. So we want to ultimately determine what subjects are we filtering by. So when I want to filter by math, I click on math, right? And we have this if then else displaying math. If I want to filter by math and music, again, I can click on music. It's going to write the date in there. And now I'm filtering by music as well. But if I'm not filtering by anything, then I want all of the subjects in here because I want all of them to be displayed. So if I have no filters, then I want all of them to be displayed. So here's how I'm doing this if then else. First, I'm checking for this joined list to see if it's empty or not. If it is empty, that means I'm not filtering by anything, and then I'm just going to display the subject value that's over here, just like you see it now. Nothing's in the filtered list join text column, so it's just displaying whatever's in the subject value. However, if I want to filter by math, then something's going to be in this filtered on value, right? So if I want to filter by math here, I click on math, it puts in the date, filtered applied now sends that across all of the rows, which means this first condition is no longer met because this filtered applied is no longer empty. So now it's going to go to this next condition and check if the filtered on is empty or not. If it's not empty, like you see here in the math row, then I'm going to write the subject value here. So math gets sent to math. However, these next 5 are empty, so I'm just going to display this else nothing. And here we just see that I'm only filtering by math. Okay. If I want to filter by music, again, I click on music, puts the date in. This is no longer empty, so that first condition is not applied. It's going to check now to see if filtered on is empty or not, and the ones that aren't empty are going to have the subject values written in. Okay, next, you see I have this filter count to check how many items I'm filtering. So this is just a roll-up column of this subjects sheet and that filtered on date user-specific column, and I'm grabbing the count. So it's looking at this column. Right now we're seeing I have 2 items in there, so it picks up the 2, and that's why I have the value 2 spread across. That's also why I am doing a clear column when I'm clicking on the date a second time, right? So if I no longer want to filter by math, I click on math, it clears the value, which gives me now this filter count of 1 because these are all cleared and that is and that has a value written in it, so I have a filter count of 1. Okay, lastly, I'm looking at this filtered icon to see this filtered subjects, if it's empty or not. If so, put a checkbox, otherwise leave it empty. So music is filled, so I have this checkbox here. And all this is for is to have that interface here, where if I'm filtering by music, I have a checkbox. If I'm filtering by art, I have a checkbox. If I'm filtering by none of them, I get all of the checkboxes. And this is going to mimic this interface of the in-app filter, where if I check on English, I get a check. If I check by science, I get a check. But if I don't do either, then I get all. Instead of having the all, I just have the checkbox on all of them. Here. All right. So now I have this nice user interface of being able to filter things. But if we actually want to filter by our filter button here, we actually need to make that magic happen, and all of that magic is happening inside of the tutors sheet. So again, here is the tutor. Here is the subjects that they teach. Again, this is an array column. Here's a relation to the subjects. I have a join list just for display purposes, so we know which subjects this person is teaching. Next, just like I have a relation here from the subject array column to the subject value, I also have a relation from this subject array column to the subject's filtered subjects if then else sheet. So in the subject sheet, again, remember I have this if then else. It's going to display the subject value if I'm filtering by that subject. So again, if I want to filter by science, I click on science, puts in a date, and now this is the only value that's in this filtered subjects. So which means in my tutor sheet, when I relate this column to that if then else, this is what pops up. Only that match between the subjects that this tutor teaches and the subjects that I'm filtering by. So right now, the only value in this column is science, so it's going to attempt to match science to science, and here we see that this person has science and this person has science. So that's the only match that happens. If I want to filter by science and math, let's say, well, now I have the words math and science in here. And so it's going to match math and science. So here it found a match, Here it found match math and science. Here it found just math, and here it found just science. Now, we want to filter by and conditions, not by or conditions. So we need to be able to match a multiple to multiple. No great way to do that, which is why I'm using a count to see how many subjects I'm filtering by and how many matches that it found to make that match. So in the subjects, again, I have a roll up to see how many matches or how many subjects I'm filtering by, in this case 2. Again, this is a roll up of this column here. And then in my tutor sheet, I have a roll up, but this roll up is looking at this relation to see how many matches it found. So you see here, this roll up is looking at the relation filter to the filtered subjects, and I'm getting a count. So here I have a count of 1, 0, 2, 1, and 1 because that's how many matches it found. So now, to see if it made a perfect match, we're just going to compare this number to this number, how many filters I'm filtering by. So back in the tutor sheet, I have a single value column where I'm grabbing, oops, not this one, here. Oh yeah, single value, where I'm grabbing the relation to subjects, and I'm grabbing the filter count. I guess it could also be just the, I guess I didn't have to do the relation. I could have just done the subjects and then filter count, and we give me that same number, but I just need to bring that number in somehow. Okay, and now I'm searching to see, hey, does this number equal this number? So does 1 equal 2? Right? Because if it doesn't, if this number does not equal this number, then it's not a perfect match. Because I want to search for math and science. In this case, it just found math, so 1 does not equal 2. This found no matches, so 0 does not equal 2. Here I have math and science, so 2 does equal 2, and so forth, right? So initially I had this display being a true-false, but I instead changed it to zeros and ones, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So this last little bit here is to determine, okay, should I display this tutor based upon the filtering that got matched? So I have an if then else, which is first saying, hey, does this roll up of the filter, does the matching equal the number of filters I'm filtering by? If so, then display 1. So here we see that 1 does not equal 2, so the 1 is not displayed. 0 does not equal 2, so 0 is not displayed. 2 does equal 2, so 1 is displayed. All right, so we're looking to see, does it equal? Okay, the next thing I'm searching for, but what if I don't have any filters in here? So in this case, my filtered count is 0, right? And this is not going to equal 0. So the next thing I had to determine, okay, well, if I'm not filtering by anything, well, then this total filter count's going to be 0, in which case I want to show everything, right? So I have here, if the total filter count equals 0, then also display a 1, because I want to show that column. And then back over here again, I'm just filtering this list based on if this display equals 1, right? So again, I'm filtering where display equals 1. So right now I'm not filtering at all. So the filter count equals 0. So in that case, it should display a 1, which means all of them are going to match. Okay, if I want to filter by just math now, okay, then that 1 equals 1, right? Total filter count is no longer a 0, so it's not going to match everything. And here I'm looking for just math. So math is found, math is found, math is found. 1 equals 1 in this case, so it's going to result in those 3 people. But if I want to filter by just math and science, right? So now I have a count of 2, right? And so now it's only going to match with the total filter count is 2, and the count filtered relation is 2, in which case it's only this person where 2 equals 2. So that's where the display is 1 for only that user, and so it's getting filtered by that person. So again, it's the same interface as this filter, except that it's an AND condition, not an OR condition. All right, so the only other logic we had to build in here was if it doesn't filter by anything, right? So let's say I want to filter by people who teach art. In this case, none of my tutors teach art. So when I hit back, I want to display that there were no results that match my filter criteria. So I have this text here that says no results match. And this only gets displayed when this sum display equals 0. Let me show you that logic. So this sum display is a rollup where I'm looking at this tutor sheet, and I'm looking at that if then else display column, and I'm grabbing the sum. So this display, again, is going to display either a 1 or a 0 based on if there's any matches. In this case, there are no matches, so everything is a 0. So since sum display, if you total all of these up, it equals 0. Then the filter, or then this condition matches because sum display equals 0, and it's going to display this text. Okay, but if I search by science, right? Well, my filter count equals 1. Sorry, here my display has some 1s in here, which means my sum display is a 2. It's not a 0, so it's going to hide that text. Okay, if I search by, those 4 things, if I search by everything here, right, except for art, okay, again, no results match because I have 5 total filters, and none of these teachers match all 5 of those filters, so the sum display is 0 because the display is 0. Now, the only thing that's kind of confusing, right, is that if I click all 5 of these things, or all 6 of these things, right, that means I want to filter by all 6, somebody who teaches by all 6 people, or all 6 subjects. In this case, no matches get found, but it has the same visualization as if I do no filters. So that's the only glitch to all of this, but the logic is there, and it's just another opportunity for us to have a different type of filtering within Glide. There's no additional rows that get used, so that's nice. It just involves a little bit of logic using some condition checks and a custom action on the filter screen. All right, so hopefully this helps you. If you have any questions at all, leave me a comment below or reach out to me at Twitter @rpetito. And as always, thanks for watching.